cracking film, Gromit. Sorry, my impression needs work, but yes, guys, I am so excited because we get to talk about something amazing today. So, yes, I know Drake and Joshua are still going on, that's still really cool, but let's not talk about the fact that this is the year that's going to start off on a really good note, because we get to start off with the long-awaited grand cracking return of Wallace and Gromit. There is a brand new Wallace and Gromit movie coming out tomorrow on Netflix, Vengeance Most Foul, which is the sequel to the Academy Award-winning short The Wrong Trousers. And while I wish I could cover all the shorts right now too, I just don't quite have enough time. So, because of that, unfortunately, the shorts will have to be saved for another time. But if you want my overall thoughts on them before we get into this review, let's go through them in order really quickly. A Grand Day Out, it's an amazing little special that establishes the characters, it establishes Nick Park's animation style, and of course it establishes Peter Sallis as Gromit, and it is a delightful, charming short, and it's really cool that it was actually Nick Park's graduation project for film school. That's a really cool fact I learned about this movie quite recently. So, yeah, great short. Grand Day Out, awesome. Wrong Trousers, amazing short. Like, it's the short that got Wallace and Gromit on the map. Like, the big introduction was A Grand Day Out, but The Wrong Trousers was when it broke into icon status. And then A Close Shave was a really good one too, but definitely the somewhat weakest of the three. I don't know. Like I said, I need to rewatch these again. And then, of course, there's the one that came out after this movie came out, which is A Matter of Loaf and Death. Probably my personal favorite of all the shorts because it's so dark and twisted and just delightfully psychotic. But a really, really good short. And, well, yeah, the last voice performance of Peter Sallis before he sadly passed away. Rest in peace, Peter. Rest in peace. So now, after all these years, they are finally coming back with a brand new adventure. Now, you lucky UK people got to see that movie early, but since it's not coming out here until tomorrow on Netflix, I have not been able to see it since then. So, because of that, it's going to be a day one review, it's going to be a day one watch, and I am super freaking stoked because I have loved this series since I was a kid, and it has only gotten more clever, funny, and entertaining as I kept getting older. When I understood the adult jokes, the clever writing, the witty, sharp humor, like, it's one of the most iconic things to arguably come out of Britain, and that is no hyperbole. So, yeah, needless to say that this review is going to be quite biased, but it's a piece of my childhood, man. I love Wallace and Gromit. Like, they're one of those franchises you just can't dislike. So, without further ado or delay, please join me as we time travel back to when I was a spry young 4-year-old kid, and let's talk about Wallace's and Gromit's big feature film debut with the help of DreamWorks Animation. What's up? What's happening? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Animation Station, your number one station for anything animation, including a cracking inventor and his loyal canine, and TV and movies. I'm your host, Jackson Small. Welcome to my review of one of my favorite movies from childhood, Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. This is an awesome, fantastic, outstanding film that I'm so happy that I finally get a chance to talk about it. Like I said, I wish I could review the shorts too, but I just don't have the time right now. But I promise you, I will get to them eventually. But for now, let's talk about this movie and why it's so freaking good. So, I have a pretty long, lengthy written review for this one, so I'm not going to waste any more of your time, and we're going to dive straight into it. Here's my written review. I tried to keep it spoiler-free as best I could, but may or may not have slipped once or twice. But I hope you enjoy. While I unfortunately don't have the time to review all of the releases of this wonderful series right now, as Vengeance Most Foul comes out tomorrow, I will at least review the previous feature-length movie because this is definitely a huge highlight of the franchise's history, and a huge part of my childhood. and arguably another reason why I became a horror fan. When the town's prized giant vegetables begin to disappear, our favorite cheese-loving inventor, Wallace, voiced by the late great Peter Sallis, may he rest in peace, and his savvy canine companion, Gromit, must use all their wildly imaginative skills to humanely capture all the rabbits per the request of Lady Tottenton, voiced by Helena Bonham Carter. Yes, Bellatrix from Harry Potter, among many other roles, to ensure that the vegetable competition goes off without any issues. But with a monstrous were-rabbit, as the locals call it, on the loose, and the cruel, relentless hunter Victor Quartermain, voiced by Voldemort Ralph Fiennes, right on their tails, the duo have quite the hair-raising adventure on their hands. Sorry, I couldn't resist not doing puns with this one. So, all the pros of this movie. Voice acting is fantastic. Whether it's Peter Sallis, whether it's Helena Bonham Carter, or whether it's Ralph Fiennes, all of them do such a fantastic job with their roles. Like, yes, Helen and Ralph are technically celebrity guests, but they do not phone in their performances and sound great. Especially Ralph Fiennes, who, as usual, plays a great over-the-top villain. Aaardman's stop-motion animation is excellent and really flexes its bigger budget. Like, yeah, this movie didn't have a super big budget, it was only $30 million, but still, it's a bigger budget than the shorts, and it flexes that through the different camera angles, how dynamic they got with the cinematography, and the slightly higher quality plasticine that they used for the characters. Slightly higher quality. It's really hard to tell. The story is superb. It is basic. It is a story that definitely takes inspiration from horror movies like The Wolfman, for example, but it's done in a way where it feels original, where it feels unique, where it feels clever, and it's a really well-told story. Writing is phenomenal. Like, this movie is so well written. Like, I could go on and on about how smart this movie is, about how sharply written it is, about how clever it is, but I don't want to waste too much time. And like I said, very long written review. Music from Hans Zimmer is outstanding. Yes, that Hans Zimmer. That guy. The guy that made the apparently very beloved Man of Steel soundtrack. I thought it was just okay, but that's just my opinion. But his music in here is outstanding. I love his music here, especially the way that he reinterprets that classic Wallace and Gromit theme. It's really well done. Jokes are all clever and hilarious. Like anything Wallace and Gromit, it is guaranteed to make you laugh. Yes, it has a few little lowbrow jokes, but they're not like aggravating lowbrow jokes like you get from most kids shows nowadays. Now, it's lowbrow, but it also feels clever. And I don't know if it's me, but I feel like British humor is better than American humor. And this is a big example of why. Because the humor in this movie is so good. Whether it's visual humor and from the slapstick caused by the stop-motion animation, or the wordplay jokes, or even just the cheesy, stupid puns. Like, this movie's hilarious. It is so well written. It's so funny. I could go on and on. The homage and references to classic horror movies like The Wolfman and King Kong are absolutely incredible, especially nowadays as someone who is now a massive die-hard horror fan, especially of classic 30s and 40s horror. It's really cool. The tone's perfect. It's lighthearted as you'd expect from Wallace and Gromit, but it also has its dark moments, but it's not so dark that it alienates kids. Like, I'd argue that this is a great horror movie for kids alongside, where's that other movie? Ah, yes. It's a great horror movie for kids to enter into the genre alongside this movie right here. So, which if you know me and you know my review of that film, that's very high praise. Characters both old and new are all great. Wallace is still himself, Gromit is still himself, Lady Tottenton is a great potential love interest, but kind of not really. Hard to explain. You'll understand when you see the movie. And of course, Victor Quartermain, hilarious, over-the-top, goofy villain. The pacing is quick. Like, this movie does move like sonic speed. It moves really, really fast. But it doesn't rush anything, despite moving so quickly, because everything feels in character with the series itself. The runtime is brisk at under 90 minutes. This movie is barely an hour and 20 minutes. Like, this movie is barely 80 minutes. It is a very short, very brief sit, and one of DreamWorks' shortest films. And, yeah, it's worth every single second. They use every single second to their advantage, despite having a much lower runtime than most movies nowadays. Atmosphere is both pleasant and spooky. It's that pleasant, nice English countryside of Wallace and Gromit, mixed with a not super intense, but very noticeable and atmospheric, spooky horror atmosphere. Like, in the words of Nick Park, it's a vegetarian horror movie. And you can kind of understand that from the tone alone. The dialogue is very faithful to its source material and fits seamlessly in with the rest of the show's many animated works. Like, this fits right into the shorts, despite the fact that it is a big feature-length film. Most movies can't do that right. And rewatchability is very high, especially in October. Like, this movie is a must-watch for me, personally, once every single spooky season. Because it is a piece of my childhood, it is one of my first horror films, and it is a great, great horror film for kids. However, there are a few minor imperfections to this Golden Vegetable's overall production. The plot, while well done, is very predictable. It's something we've seen before. It does follow some of the horror cliches. The villain, as funny as he is a bit too cliche and stereotypical. Like, we've seen this over-the-top, goofy villain before. The guy that hates the main character and tries to get with the main female character while also still hating the male character. Yeah, we've seen it before. And the second act is a little slow. Like, they spend a lot of time with Wallace and Gromit when they actually find out the identity of this were-rabbit, and it does drag a small little bit, but it quickly picks its momentum back up. Also, it's not really the movie's fault, but there is a tie-in video game to this one, and unfortunately, from what I've heard, it's not very good. This is back when movie license games were much more of a Russian roulette, I'll put it. Because you'll either get something amazing like Spider-Man 2, or an absolute piece of crap like Batman Forever for Super Nintendo. What's also unfortunate is that this film sadly didn't do very well in the box office when it initially came out in 2005, especially in comparison to Aaardman's first ever feature film, Chicken Run. It by no means flopped, and it remains the second highest grossing stop-motion movie of all time, but out of its total worldwide gross of $192 million, only $56 million of that came from the US. Sure, its budget was relatively low at only $30 million, but that's still only a $20 million profit, which is quite low, especially by today's standards. Thankfully, though, it does continue to be appreciated today by fans of the franchise, animation buffs, and most critics, with a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, as well as a lower, but still positive 79% score from the general audience. Not only that, but it also won the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature, as well as 3 Annies, a BAFTA, and a ton of British awards in 2006, to go alongside the 2 Academy Awards that were won previously by Wrong Trousers and a Close Shave, respectively. So even if it didn't become a huge hit financially, I mean, it did get a McDonald's promotion with Halloween buckets. It still got a very happy ending. Overall, Curse of the Were-Rabbit is an absolutely fantastic animated feature. While it may have some minor problems, it still manages to deliver a quirky, fun, hilarious, charming, spooky, entertaining, atmospheric, and just wonderful adventure, with arguably the biggest icons of stop-motion animation in the industry. this is definitely one rabbit you absolutely need to hunt down if you haven't seen it yet. Highly, highly recommended. I love this film. I will always love this film, and it's still, as of right now, my personal favorite piece of Wallace and Gromit media. They handled the transition to film so well. The creators worked very well with DreamWorks Animation to bring it to life, and even nowadays, 20 years later, it still holds up incredibly well. So, yeah, I literally have nothing else to say about this movie without going into spoilers, which I don't want to do. It's a great movie for the fans of the show. It's a great movie for kids. It's a great horror movie for kids. And it's just an all-around delightful, fun, charming watch. If you love Wallace and Gromit, you are simply required to watch this if you, for whatever reason, have not done so already. And because of that, my final verdict for Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, is going to be a 9 out of 10. This is a fantastic movie that still holds up well even 20 years later, and it has me excited to see how Vengeance Most Foul continues its cinematic legacy. Amazing movie, and arguably one of my favorites from DreamWorks Animation. And, of course, Aaardman. Well, that's it. I almost spent a full 20 minutes talking about that one. I'm sorry. I guess when I jumped in that time machine, I took a little too long. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. This is the first time I've ever covered Wallace and Gromit on this channel, and just like I did with Drake and Josh, I hope you guys have enjoyed. It's another piece of my childhood that I'm now thankfully getting to revisit and tell all of you about my personal opinions of it. I promise you, at some point down the road, we will review the shorts. I promise you that. I don't know when, but it'll be at some point. You can guarantee that. Also, what you can guarantee is that tomorrow we are definitely reviewing Vengeance Most Foul. It is one of my most anticipated movies of this year, and the fact that I get to start it off as my first new movie review of the year, yeah, I'm happy to say the least. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more cracking videos like this almost every single day. And I'll see you guys next time for Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul. Take care, lads.
Lesson I will soon forget. So listen and you won't regret. Be true to yourself, don't miss your chance, and you won't end up like the fool who ripped his pants.